Hi, I'm April Rozzo, one of the registered dietitians with Florida Cancer Specialists and Research Institute, and welcome to my kitchen. Thank you for joining me. We're doing kind of a special fall holiday edition of our teaching kitchen, and today we're making a super simple roasted butternut squash with cranberries. It makes a super pretty, colorful, festive side dish to a potluck party, a family dinner, a holiday dinner. It's really versatile and it's great for the season. So what I have already in the bowl is about a pound of peeled and cubed butternut squash. Now you can buy a whole butternut squash and peel it and break it down and scoop the seeds out and cube it. I highly recommend that you spend the extra $1 or $2 on the package in your grocery store of butternut squash already peeled and cubed. And that's what I did. So if I move the cranberries, you can see some of this beautifully cubed butternut squash. It saves you a ton of prep time. I have broken down fresh butternut squash before. I will avoid it at all costs as often as I can. I love butternut squash, but I hate peeling and cubing it and breaking it down. So save yourself some time and effort would be my recommendation. And then I have just fresh cranberries. You probably already know you can't get fresh cranberries year round. They are very much seasonal at the grocery store. So usually when they are in season in the fall and winter, I buy several bags and put them in the freezer so that I can enjoy them year round. But again, because they're seasonal, it's the perfect time to make this recipe. And you can already see without it being cooked how pretty it is, those colors together. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna set this aside just for a second. So I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and I'm gonna add to that, I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg with just a pinch of salt, okay? So that's what's in this little bowl here. I'm gonna add that right into my melted butter, okay? And then also to this, we're gonna add a tablespoon of maple syrup. You could use honey instead if you don't have any maple syrup. I really like the flavor of the maple syrup and what it adds to the squash and the cranberries. So I'm using, again, just a tablespoon of maple syrup. And then we want, if you don't have fresh oranges available, that's fine. We're looking for a couple tablespoons of orange juice. So if you have orange juice in the fridge instead, use that. I happen to have some fresh oranges in the fridge. So we're gonna mix this, all the spices and the butter together. I'm just gonna give it a good mix, okay? We're gonna pour it over this, and then we're gonna squeeze the juice into the mix as well, okay? So we're just gonna pour all this over, move this over here, all of this goodness over the butternut squash and cranberries, all right? And then juice of an orange, again, if you don't have fresh oranges, couple tablespoons of orange juice will be fine. Okay, make sure you get all that juice in there. All right, and we'll do the second half. If you've got a bigger bowl, you can squeeze the orange juice into the butter mixture and the spices, and then pour the whole thing over all at once. I just knew that I was gonna make a mess and that this wasn't all gonna go into that little small container I was using. So I'm doing it this way, okay? So once you've got all of that juicy goodness squeezed in, we're just gonna toss it together. We wanna make sure that all of the spices and the juice get nice and mixed in together, okay? So give that a stir. I have also done this recipe when I was testing things out. I didn't have any butternut squash, but I had a ton of sweet potatoes on hand. So this recipe works equally well with peeled and cubed sweet potatoes. If you're not a fan of butternut squash, or if you don't have any butternut squash, that is a great substitute, okay? You could also, if you wanted to, add in some chopped pecans or walnuts for a little crunch and a little nutty flavor. That would be excellent in this recipe as well. So we've got everything mixed in. It's fine if it's not perfect, because once it's in the oven, we're gonna give it a little mix, a little toss about halfway through the cooking time. So we're really just wanting to make sure that things are mostly coated. And then we're gonna take, I have a baking dish. I sprayed it with some nonstick spray ahead of time, okay? So make sure you do that. And then we're just gonna pour this mixture right in. Do it this way so you guys can see it. Look at all those nice bright colors. Make sure you get all the goodness, all those spices. All right, so get all of that into your baking dish. My oven has already been preheating to 425. I know that sounds high, but we want to get a good roast on that butternut squash, okay? And again, some of the spice mixture, make sure you don't miss any of that. Get all of that in the dish, okay? So we've got, you don't have to cover it. You can leave it just as is, and we're gonna pop it right in the oven. It's gonna take about 30 to 40 minutes. So depending on how big your cubes are, right? When I did this with sweet potatoes, I left the chunks a little bit bigger. It took a good 40 minutes. This butternut squash is cubed up smaller, so it should probably only take about 30 minutes. And again, about halfway through, we're gonna pull it out and just mix it up again, and then it'll cook the rest of the way. So into the oven it goes. And we'll give it a stir in about 15 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. We're gonna pull the casserole dish, the baking dish, out of the oven and give everything a good stir. Make sure all the butter and the spices are mixed in and that everything is cooking evenly. So we'll just get this out. I don't know if you can hear it sizzling in my microphone, but it's already smelling good. I can already smell the butternut squash starting to roast. So like I said, we're just gonna give it a good mix. And you can see right now the butter, it's very juicy. There's lots of loose liquid at the bottom. Don't worry, as the butternut squash and the cranberries cook down, they're gonna absorb all of that great flavorful liquid. Just gonna toss that rogue piece of butternut squash back in there. Make sure we've got everything nice and mixed up. And then back in the oven it goes for another 15 minutes or so. And then we should have a nice, delicious side dish. Okay, so we're just about ready. It's been about 40 minutes in total. So we're gonna pull this out of the oven. And now you can see it's nice and the butternut squash is roasted. You can see the cranberries have started to burst and release a lot of their juices. And remember before when we took it out to stir it, there was all that liquid at the bottom. That's been absorbed now. So you can see there's not really anything at the bottom of the bowl. There's not a bunch of thin liquid or juice. It's all been absorbed by those cranberries and butternut squash. So the nice thing is that you can serve this as is. You can put this whole dish on the table. You can put it in, if you have like a colorful platter, you can serve it that way. But just so you can see, we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit on a plate here. It smells like the holidays. It smells like fall. If fall had a smell, this would be it. The sweetness from the cranberries and the maple syrup and that roasted butternut squash. Okay. There we go. And look how pretty it is. So again, you can bring it right to the table in that baking dish. It goes really well, pairs beautifully with your turkey or ham. whatever you're serving for the holidays, or even if it's not a holiday meal, if it's just a meal for the family, goes with fish, with chicken. You really can serve it with anything. It's festive, it's pretty, it's delicious, and I hope you enjoy it.